Welcome to Deal Nation. We're joined today by Josh Culler, the owner of Culler Media and the host of the podcast REI Marketing Weekly. Josh, how you doing?
Michael, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm really excited to get to chit chat with you. You're going to be on my show too, so
Yeah.
shameless plug there. Now that you mention it, but yeah, it's good to
No,
connect.
I'm looking forward to it. You are a very well connected individual in the REI space, really kind of leading the conversation in many ways on how marketing can be optimized. So I'm really looking forward to just nerding out about marketing and how REI companies can do better and earn more, But to kick things off, let people know who you are and how you got drawn into REI.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep it short and sweet because I'm sure you deal with this every once in a while where somebody goes like 10 minutes on an introduction, and I'm not about that. If you want to learn 100% about me, then just go find me on social media, on YouTube, and listen to my podcast, and then you'll learn a lot more about me. But the nutshell, Michael, is I've been in the real estate investing space since late 2011, going into 2012. So it's going on 13 years. Which is absolutely crazy. Right out of high school, 19 years old, I got hired by a local wholesaler and did just about everything you can imagine. Back then, the landscape of real estate wholesaling was much different. It was very, very frowned upon. Very few people were doing it. It was a very well-known and uneducated space, even just 10 years ago, really. So I worked with them for about 6 months, and then I actually parted ways with them and started working with one of their competitors that was local in the market. And many people in our space know the name Gary Harper. He was partners with a couple other people that were had a pretty massive wholesaling organization out here in the Midwest. Me being living right outside Chicago in Northwest Indiana. There's rock stars that were part of that organization. David Richter, Simple CFO, was another one of those as well. That was a part of that organization. And so I was actually this is now, I was going on 21 years old. I became the marketing director for that organization. And again, being a completely different landscape, it was just very interesting. The whole premise of marketing was building the brand and building our buyers list. That we did very little direct to seller marketing. That did not exist. Text blasting did not exist. Email marketing was still a really, really good thing. Social media really hadn't got its grounds yet at that point. Acquisitions was going on HUD, auction.com, MLS, and placing bids, thousands of bids on a daily basis. That was acquisitions. So you weren't really talking to sellers. So it was just a very different landscape. And then I held that position for about 6 years. And then late 2017, that organization kind of split up, and we had started a mastermind for real estate investors. I went with the owner who purchased the mastermind from that partnership split. And I ran that mastermind for 2 years, all while doing content and social media, podcasting, camera, video work on the side as a kind of a side hustle. Now Culler Media existing. And then 2019, March 2019, it's actually going on 6 years next month. I went full-time into my business, and I now 100% still work within the real estate investing space. I only work with real estate investors, and we do basically organic content management, which is social media, YouTube, podcasting, and then I do a lot of consulting on those fronts as well. So that's the nutshell.
No, it's fantastic. It's funny you bring up, fun fact, you bring up David Richter. He was actually guest number 1 on Deal Nation.
Really? Oh, there you go. Yeah. I actually just interviewed him for my podcast yesterday as the time we're recording. So yeah, for sure. He and I go way back too. He and I went to high school together. So that's how far back we go.
Did you really? Oh, wow. Yeah. Always a good, easy conversation.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize you had the Gary Harper connection as well.
Yes. Yeah. And Gary and I go even further back because he was my 4th grade Sunday school teacher. And I sat in the office with him for, I knew him when he had, he has an amazing story. He's a survivor of Lyme disease. And I knew him back when he got it and when he went through it. I was actually in high school when he was going through it. And then, like I said, I got hired by him, and he and I worked in the same office for about 5-6 years. So processes, systems, all that kind of stuff got pounded into my head every single day. So that was some good times.
If anybody listening doesn't know who Gary Harper is, take a quick look, do a quick research, look him up, because he's the guy that even the top 1% real estate investors in the country go, well, what would Gary say? What would Gary
Yeah.
do? You know,
Yep. Yep.
he's a guru for the gurus. So
Absolutely.
good name to know.
Mhm.
I love that you decided to stay in the REI niche and really kind of provide guidance in that niche, because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for growth and optimization in the REI space in particular. So it fills a gap. I think it's a really invaluable service.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I just kind of decided early on, like I had already built a pretty vast network in the space because of running the mastermind. And then I actually had attended several masterminds, outside masterminds before we started ours, and had made some really good relationships and connections with people. And so it's a space, like, truth be told, obviously, like if I have a high level service as a service provider, real estate investors generally have money to be able to spend on this kind of stuff, where it's not going to be nickel and diming. And we know a lot of real estate investors that are cheap. However, they have the money to be able to spend on marketing, whereas there's very few industries that are out there that could actually spend the money to work with me. Right. So and that's not an egotistical way of saying it. It's just, it is what it is. But additionally, on that note too, it does help. And this kind of can go into branding and authority, is when I am talking to a potential lead that wants to work with me and I bring up all these names, just like we were name dropping, when I bring up all these names that I work with, people that
Mm-hmm.
are specifically in the space and they have direct communication with, they have direct relationships with, it almost instantly cements the authority for me to work with that person. So it's
Yeah.
it's a big leg up. It really is, for sure.
No, for sure. We some advice that we often give here on Deal Nation, and especially for those that are just getting involved in real estate investment, trying to figure it out. Sometimes people aren't going to have the budgets to go big, right? They need to get the cash flow in first. So one of the things that we tell people to do is kind of reverse engineer what the outcomes that they want, and look at the marketing that's being done and the systems that are in place at the really successful top 1% shops. And then try to shrink that down to what you can afford now, and have an idea in mind of what steps you want to take, or what stages you want to hit in order to get up to that space. So
Mhm.
as kind of a way of constructing this, let's go backwards. Normally we start with, what are some tips and tricks for the beginning, and we build up to prognosticating of like, where do you see the industry headed. Let's reverse that, so we can reverse engineer this. Talk about kind of where you see marketing for real estate investment now, where you see it going, and then we'll start to kind of drill back down to like what people can do as action items for their business
Yeah.
today, depending on their level.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to frame it up. I will take it directly from a standpoint of just the people that I have direct communication with. Again, like having such a good pulse on the real estate investing space and the marketing that goes on. Even when I'm working with real estate investors on specifically, like I don't run paid traffic, I don't run direct mail campaigns, I don't run like anything else outside of organic video traffic. That's like social media
Mhm.
content, that kind of stuff. But that being said, when I'm working with a client, I am tying directly into the marketing that they're doing, because I think one of the biggest, and this will lead to back to your question, I think one of the biggest poisons that is in the head of people that are in our industry when it comes to social media and content is that they try to detach it from their overall marketing efforts. And then there's no connection between what they actually do to what social media they're putting out. They're putting out stuff that's irrelevant, right? So we want to make sure that that kind of stuff is a part of your actual overall marketing, and it integrates with everything that you do, from SEO to Facebook ads to text blasting, cold calling, everything. It all needs to tie in together. So I get to talk to a lot of like the other people that are working with, say, my clientele. So the marketing director that's running their PPC, the marketing director that's running their Facebook traffic or whatever it is, and see really what's going on. And what the patterns that I've seen, in addition to being able to have a pulse on it from the people I work with, but also, again, we mentioned the podcast that I have on. I specifically, by the way, made that podcast to connect with people so I can answer questions like you just asked.
Yeah.
So I get direct insight because I'm what you just asked me, I'm asking them that question.
Yeah.
So when you get on my podcast, I'm going to ask you the same thing about texting and like the industry that you're in and that sort of stuff.
Totally.
So to me, what I have seen is when it comes to marketing, and we even talk about like marketing and sales crossing over pretty often and very frequently. So like even on my show, we talk about sales frequently because they do cross over and they go hand in hand with each other. One of the biggest things that I'm seeing is the intentional connections with the leads that are coming through the door. Time and time again, without me leading people into this type of conversation, I've had people get on my podcast, and when I ask them what's going on in your marketing, what are you doing? They say that I'm no longer focused on the quantity of leads. I'm focused on the quality.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less if I have 20,000 leads coming through my door every single month. I'm fine with having 100 super qualified leads. I'm only doing 5 to 10 deals a month. And as long as I can really, really dig in and drive in a great relationship with those leads, then it's easy for me to be able to convert them and buy a deal from them. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm hearing in this space that is kind of a rinse and repeat from everybody that I talk to in a very roundabout way. It's just how they're having conversations with these sellers and the leads that are coming through their door, and being able to not just like during the process, it's like how quick they're getting to them too. So if somebody's running, like we talk about SEO, if somebody's running SEO and an SEO lead comes in, you have to get to that lead within minutes, like 2-3 minutes, or because they're shopping right now. They're going to like every single place and whoever answers their call first is the person that's normally going to get the deal. So even just the speed to lead conversation and then how deep you can drive that relationship, that's the number one thing that I'm hearing when it comes to the marketing and sales component of real estate investing and generating leads.
Yeah, I love that. To continue with the name dropping trend, I was talking to Brent Daniels a while back, and I think he has like a 5-minute or less, or maybe 3-minute or less hard kind of rule with any paid search leads that are coming in to get to them right away. And it's, it's kind of to me, it falls into 2 buckets, right? Like you need to activate right away, right? You need to make that call right away because it's going to have, and it's a call in that case, typically, right? It's going to be your first point of contact. But if you have the right systems in place, there's the ability to have a call and text kind of simultaneous component, right? Like almost any sales organization, if you call and you don't get somebody on the phone, send them a text, hey, I tried to call, what's a better time to connect? And that kind of 1-2 punch can be really powerful.
Absolutely.
And then of those 100 leads, those 100 super qualified leads, right? What I think is just absolute gold with a lot of the organic leads that come in is that, with distressed properties like 10 years ago, right? Or even 5-6 years ago, the only space that people were working within for leads was they've already recognized that they're in a desperate situation, right? They've already recognized that there are no other recourses. Right?
They've identified themselves already.
They've self-identified as being in a distressed situation. And so that's why that old school, like cash kind of marketing was working, because it was appealing to that small demographic that knew that they were in trouble and needed an out, right? Whereas with the organic search, you're able to get to, or the organic marketing efforts, you're able to get to people at a early research, early consideration stage. And that widens the circle exponentially in terms of your potential leads. But they're not always going to be in a hyper desperate situation. They haven't necessarily self-identified. They might be kind of just kicking around options, in which case, if you've got a good drip sequence in place via text, email, both, like using call follow-ups, and you've got that drip sequence in place, you're going to be able to take that 100 leads and say that the 90 that didn't convert within the first 30 to 60 days, you're still going to have a high likelihood of capturing those when they are ready to sell, because you're brand present in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why, like, and to your point as well, I think when it comes to how kind of organic content ties into this conversation that we're having, is I look at organic content as it's like your 24-hour salesman, right? So if let's
Mhm.
say Lucy just lost her father, and there's no one else to take over the house that he already paid off like 25 years ago, that she's going to inherit the property, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and she's up wide awake, concerned. What do I do with it? I have no idea what I do with this property. He actually rented it out 2 years ago, and there's a tenant in there and they're a nightmare and that sort of thing. They're motivated at that point. They're in the, like you said, I believe they're now beginning their problem solving sequence. So they're
Mhm.
starting to actively look for a solution to the problem that they have at hand. They may not be ready to make the decision right now, but they're actually at least looking for a solution to the problem. They're up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, nobody's answering phone calls at that time. They kind of know that. So then they start to Google, what do I do with the property I just inherited from my father? Lucy
Yeah.
comes across a video that you put out that talks about what to do with that property that you just inherited in Atlanta, Georgia. And she watches the video, gets all the information she needs, answers, all questions get answered. Who's the first person that she's going to be calling during working business hours? It's going to be you, because you just delivered instant value to her. So, and that first initial phone call is going to be 10 times easier, because she's not going to be looking to debunk the scam that you're trying to impress on her because you cold outreached. That content already broke that barrier and broke the ice with her, and now she's more comfortable hopping on the phone call with you. So
Yeah, that trust building factor is immense, right? It's like I'm
right.
curious. This is I'll loop it back to this conversation, but with social media, what kind of content are people putting out on social media to have a positive effect?
Yeah. If we're talking specifically for generating leads, because, like, let's be real, if we're putting content out about how to do what we do, which is a lot of the gurus that put out, you and I are part of a couple groups of coaches and people that have
Yeah.
masterminds and stuff like that. That's different. That's where it's like there's always a conversion cycle when it comes to like leads coming in for them. If, let's say, for example, you are marketing to generate deals for your wholesaling business, the idea that you have to be thinking about is that this is going to be, regardless of the fact if we want referrals, this is going to be a transactional relationship that I'm building with somebody. So the way I like to frame it up is the type of content that you put out is built more around the idea of being a resource for your potential lead that's going to watch your video. So, great example. If you put a video out, one of the most searched terms when it comes to people selling their house is, what's the difference between a realtor and a real estate investor or wholesaler? That's
Oh,
a
I didn't realize
question
that.
that they're asking. So then I'm creating video, not just one video, multiple videos that are about that specifically. You can do it where it's a very direct line of sight, like, here is the direct difference. Or you could give some case studies. You're out at a property, we just locked up this, or, don't say that, because then you're a wholesaler, you're a guru. Like, we just helped Lucy out of this situation, and here's how we did that. Here's what her situation was. We were able to provide a solution for her, like, in a non-salesy way. It's just delivering value to that person. So the idea of content marketing as a whole, regardless of if you're generating leads for motivated seller leads, or if you're generating leads for your coaching business, the principle of it, in my definition, is going to be answering questions that your target demographic has about what you do, who you are, and your industry. So if you literally
Yeah.
just take that statement, that's what content marketing is. It's just answering questions. That's all it is. I actually just got off a mastermind call with a guy that's an expert in YouTube, and he was teaching a strategy that he teaches about growing YouTube organically. And he has this strategy called the Leaf strategy. And when he was going through showing everybody how he creates his topics, he was just going to like an SEO, I think it was a SEMrush tool.
Yeah.
And it was just a key phrase generator. And every single topic that came out was a question. There was not a single one of those. He showed like a list of like 50. And I was keeping my eyes on it. I'm like, are any of these like statements? No, they were all questions, because that's what people are searching. That's where that kind of stuff will tie into, say, your SEO. It'll make like all of your content highly searchable. And then when somebody's actually like if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's your market that you're marketing to, and a lead is looking for a solution to their problem in that market, then, it's a lot easier because now they know that like you're in Atlanta, and then, because you tagged your video, you added something in the description or the title that says how to sell your inherited house in Atlanta, Georgia. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that we're at an inflection point with real estate investment, and everything that you're talking about. And the reason I brought up social media is because it's about transparency and education, like really letting people know. And oftentimes that's happening on a discovery call, right? Where the really good investors are, asking the questions to get people kind of to self-guide towards your solution, or to self-eliminate other alternatives and ending up on the solution that you want them to end up on, whether it be, a cash offer or a subject to deal or whatever, right? But when on the marketing kind of stuff, like we suggest this all the time in the drip campaigns, is use testimonials, use use cases of you solving a problem for somebody to help validate what you're offering. And what I see a lot happening in social media is I see investors talking to investors, posting pictures of checks they got, and talking about this deal that they were able to pull off. And I'm like, you're sending this social media out to, what, like 20, 30,000 investors nationwide, and you're not going to have that many that are following, but you've got a few, like 3 to 5 million homeowners on a rotating basis, if not more, that are looking for solutions. So you're marketing to the few when your audience is the many. And you're missing that opportunity to connect with sellers and to build trust and confidence in your solution, to have them come in not looking, like you said, to debunk a scam, but rather to discuss solutions, because they see you as a professional and someone that they can have an honest conversation with.
Yeah, let's deconstruct that. So there's plenty of people that I work with. Like typically I kind of like have this unwritten rule when I'm working with somebody that I really don't work with just gurus. Like they need to have an active business of what they're teaching as well, right? So if I'm working with a client that's teaching other people how to wholesale real estate, they should be having an active wholesaling business, which pretty much all my clientele have that. So if I work with a land investor, he also invests in land, right? So, but he has a community that he's built, and like a course and a mastermind program that he has with people to teach them how to invest in land. So the deviation that you'll have here is that you are going to, like, if you're doing it correctly, you are going to be putting marketing out for both of those. One of them is you have to have established authority in both sides of them. But one of them, and I'm not about like the posting the checks thing. That's a whole different conversation. Like there's tasteful marketing that we can talk about, but you still want to provide like some insight, like I am a credible wholesale educator because I've locked up, 1,500 deals over the last 3 years and generated X amount of income or whatever it is. Like those kind of like back of the baseball card stats, those have to be kind of known or else there's no credibility. So there's just kind of that's where it kind of gets gray. There's currently, I would say probably 10 clients we work with that we do marketing for both their active business and for their coaching business. And it's all about completely separating the brands from each other, because I don't want any of that kind of concern coming in where maybe a client puts out a piece of content about how they made $25,000 on this wholesale deal. And then the seller that sold the deal to them comes around and, sees that how much they made, right. Then they start causing problems. In my experience, this has never happened before. I've never had this happen before with any clients over the last, however many years, 6 years that we've been doing this. And it's all because you have to, they're two totally different demographics. We got to understand that first of all. Yeah. So we know where we're marketing to them and how we're marketing to them, what kind of content they're consuming and that sort of thing. Now, is there the potential of a seller, coming to find that kind of content from the CEO that's putting this stuff out? Sure, there's always that possibility. However, this is where like understanding your actual guidelines and like ethics and morals and all that kind of stuff comes into play. We want to make sure we're being as respectful as possible and not saying like, we're not a coach that's putting out a video that's like, dude, you'll never believe this. Like, I locked up this deal and I got the seller to commit to this price, and that made my profit 50 grand instead of 30. Like, we don't want to be putting stuff out like that, right?
Yeah.
Because then that can cause problems, especially when now that you and I have seen a handful of people sadly being exposed for this kind of stuff that's like unethical business being run. Yeah. And we don't want you to get in trouble with that. But it's just a deviation of the brands, making sure that you're separating them, creating marketing and content for those specifically, and you're only marketing out to those channels. And normally, especially if we're talking about organic social, the algorithms do a really, really good job of being able to separate those demographics as you're putting the content out in the first place. But just make sure, again, you keep to those standards and guidelines. You'll be fine.
Yeah, and it just know what should be a closed door conversation and what should not. If you and I
Absolutely.
are at a mastermind and we're having a beer after the session and we have that conversation about getting 50 out of a 30 grand potential deal, that's a great conversation to have behind closed doors. But in a searchable place, it's not. And I'm curious about your opinion on this, because this is why I said, like, I think it's like at an inflection point of us going from people who read Rich Dad Poor Dad and were kind of doing everything on the sly to more of a legitimization of off market investment and more of a recipient or seller awareness of that alternative of just I feel like there's some, you tell me if you agree or disagree, but I feel like there's some hesitancy amongst investors to be transparent, right? They have to kind of keep a little bit, hidden what they really want to accomplish or what they can really offer, almost out of a fear that being open and transparent is just going to push people to MLS or push them to other solutions.
Yeah, here's the thing. And the conversation normally, that type of conversation steers around like giving my competition the ability to know what I'm doing behind closed doors. And so like, that's, you don't want the competitive edge, right? Like that's where you see, when I was telling my story, the first person I actually worked for, the first person I got hired by, that was a local wholesaler. He's the type of guy that's been doing this type of business. And at the time, he had about 500 rentals under his belt, and I'd been investing since like 1993 or 4, I think. It was like right around the time I was born. And so he had been doing it for a very long time. He's one of the guys that you would, if you Google his name, you would never find him, never. And it's not because he really cared to not be found. He just didn't care to make everything that he did public. He wasn't interested in coaching and teaching and that sort of thing. Like he just wants to do his real estate business, and that's it. So there's those type of like that person. But if you are somebody, here's the thing, where it comes back to is what is your objective for doing the content or social media or just the marketing as a whole? If it's to generate leads and the intention is for that specifically, then we need to center everything around that, as opposed to now I know you're not asking about like, I'm afraid to be on camera and that type of conversation. Like that's kind of the difference, right?
Yeah.
For the person that's not interested in exposing everything, this is kind of the beauty of marketing and social media content, organic content as a whole, is you really get to pick and choose what goes public and what you put out there. Again, like Michael and I have already talked about, to me, it's just about using your head. Is put it in a category. Is this idea useful to the market that I'm marketing to? Is it not useful? If you can make that very, I think, Michael, a lot of times, like, people just love to overcomplicate stuff. And sometimes it's literally just that simple. Is this useful? Could this potentially generate leads for me? Could this potentially not generate leads for me?
Yeah.
It's as simple as like, if I was putting content out to generate leads for my business, does it make sense for me? Like I'm a very big sneakerhead. So I love sneakers. I have very large collection of sneakers. It really doesn't make sense.
Facebook reel the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. But so like I'll put stuff out there on a personal note, but I'm not
Mhm.
looking to put stuff out like that for generating leads. It's more like, this is me, this is who I am. And I won't put that on like my business profiles. I put that on like my personal, because it's personal. That's what I'm trying to show off, right? But you're not going to find that kind of content on my YouTube channel. You're not going to find that kind of content on my podcast, because it's not intentional to the leads that I'm trying to generate, right? So the only reason you would find it on my personal like social media accounts is just because I'm trying to show people I'm a human being and here's who I am, that type of thing. So it's all about intentionality. And that's kind of what I would frame it up with.
So with that in mind, like intentionality in mind, so I've run sales and marketing teams for a bunch of different companies over the years. And when it comes to organic marketing and SEO driven articles, video content that you're putting out, social that you're doing, if you try to wing it week by week, it just gums up the works. Your company's going to go nowhere, right? And so you have to have a content map, and you have to be able to front load that content as much as possible, so that you're getting into like it's running on semi autopilot and not becoming a real time crunch for your business. Because most REI investors, they want to put their time into seller conversations and closing deals, and not into into what I would term as just small business management, not
Yeah.
the REI game, right? So
Yeah.
what kind of advice would you give for people kind of at different stages of being able to have that content map in place?
Okay, so I'll start off with I've also seen the opposite effect, Michael,
Oh,
which you
really?
gave, is like I've seen where I'll go to like a mastermind and you'll see somebody out that is trying to build their social media, and they'll be out in the lobby the entire time we're at an event or something like that, just creating content the whole time. Cool, all looks great, goes out and everything, and then they show up at the next event like pleading with everybody like, my business is failing, how do I make it like, how do I get it back to where it is? And then somebody will ask like, well, what are you spending your time on? Oh, well, I do this, and then I also like create content about 20 hours a week or so. Like, we know where the gap needs to be filled now. Like, stop creating content and get back into your business. So
Right.
to me, there's kind of a balancing act. Number one, great question, because we're talking about now having an actual game plan and strategy for you to consistently create content. So consistency is the word that we have to be looking at here. The number one thing that I talk about is, when it comes to strategy, is what will fit your capacity, but also give you enough at bats. So what I mean by that is, in the world of social media, it's not enough to just put out like one Instagram reel or YouTube short on a weekly basis. That's not really going to do anything for you. Maybe you could bump that up to 3 a week, and then that will actually kind of generate something for you. And then you move along as you can stay consistent with it. What I see people do is they'll start with like, I got to post 2 videos a day. And then they do that for like a month. And then all of a sudden there's days where you'll see nothing going out. And then, 90 to 120 days later, there's nothing, absolutely nothing going out. And then it's kind of sporadic posting, right?
Sure.
So figure out a frequency that you can sustain comfortably, not stretch. Like, we like to stretch ourselves as entrepreneurs and business owners, Michael, but like in the world of content, you just can't do that. You need to start at a comfortable place that you could sustain for 90 days. And then if you get to the end of the 90 days and you're perfectly fine with it, you know what it takes to now create your week's worth of content, your month's worth of content, then expand that and do a little bit more. Do another 90 days, do a little bit more. Another 90 days, do a little bit more. So I think it starts with your capacity, understanding what that looks like, because there's some people that are in business that they either are a one-man show, or maybe they have 1 or 2 other employees. They have a lot more responsibilities than just sitting in a camera room for 10 hours a week and recording content. Like, you just can't put yourself under that kind of pressure when it comes to, and that responsibility. And the other thing that we have to understand principally, organic content. Now, we're not talking about advertising. We're not talking about like running Facebook ads or YouTube ads or whatever, but organic content that you're not pushing paid traffic behind is going to take time to develop. So you're not going to be putting it out there with the expectation to get results the day that you put something out and the first time that you ever post after you just created your account. Is it possible? Sure. but don't have that expectation. Content, podcasting, YouTube, social media is a marathon, and it's meant for nurturing your leads, and it's meant to get your fresh eyeballs in front of you and what content you're putting out, but it's not built to directly convert. It's built to directly nurture. So we got to have that kind of in mind, because we could spend $10,000 on a direct mail campaign today and start seeing results like days after the mail drop happens, right? Calls will start coming in the door. Might be able to close some deals. That's just not the way content works. Sometimes it does, but it's not the expectation we need to have. So capacity, then we need to start looking at like batching content's a great way to go about like actually recording your content for say a month. There's sometimes where I'll actually travel out to clients and I'll be with them for a full day once a quarter, and we'll load up every single video that we need to do for that entire quarter. I leave, have my team manage all of it, and then they're posting and everything. And then they don't have to worry about it until the next, 3 months down the road. There's some people that I work with that they record like me, I record every other Friday. So all my content for the month, I record every other Friday, twice a month. And I notch out 3 hours twice a month for that. That's because I know my capacity and what I'm doing. So figure out what capacity you can work with, how much time you can dedicate to it. And just keep in mind, it's not like you need to slot out a whole day once a month to record video, because you may not be putting out that much video. Maybe you only need to slot out 3 hours a month, 2 hours a month, 1 hour a month, whatever it takes to get your content out. Pick that, commit to it, do it, stay consistent with it, and then amplify it from there. That's where I would start everybody off at.
Okay, good. Yeah. So on that note, I'm a huge proponent of outsourcing things that you can outsource in an REI business. So for people that have the budget, if you're listening, you have the budget, you can work with Culler Media. You can have Josh and his team work on strategy with you. You can do things like have them come out and record a set amount of content and publish it. Do it. Go that route, because the positive effects that it will have on your brand and the knock-on effects that it will eventually have for lead generation as it builds over time will more than justify it. But those that don't have the budget, I think in REI, there's often a default setting to just have a VA do it. And there are certain things where you need physical presence, or you need your intellect or your personality to come through. So for people that are kind of trying to do organic marketing themselves or within their smaller organizations, what do you suggest can be done by VAs and AI versus what actually takes investor presence?
This is a fantastic question. I'm so glad that you asked this, because I very rarely on a podcast get asked this type of question. To me, obviously you already talked about, like, if you're going to have, a service provider, that's easy. They're probably going to have you, like me, I would have you record the content, send it to us, and then we do everything after that, right? And then I can help you like strategize topics and stuff like that. If you're bootstrapping, number one, not a shameless plug, but I have a YouTube channel that I talk about like how to create your own content. Like literally just every single week, I'm coming out with 2 videos a week teaching you how to do it yourself. But one of the common themes that you'll see me talk about is don't do it cheap. What I mean by that is Michael just said most people will go out and hire a virtual assistant, have them manage that, your editing and posting and stuff like that. That's fine. I have virtual assistants that work on my team, but don't do it cheap. Generally speaking, and Michael, you could attest to this, when it comes to virtual assistants, you get what you pay for. If you hire, it's very popular to hire a $3 to $5 an hour virtual assistant. You think you're getting an amazing deal, but then you have to handhold them. You have to tell them everything to do. They're going to make mistakes. You get frustrated. You wipe your hands clean and say, chalk it up to social media didn't work for me. And it literally took just that much. I see this happen all the time. So you get what you pay for. Generally speaking, for a video editor, it's a virtual assistant. I mean, what we got to keep in mind too, Michael, is that, depending on how much content you're putting out in the first place, they may not have like 30 hours a week of work to work with you. It may be like 5 or 10 hours a week that they're editing video content for you. But I would recommend getting a virtual assistant to edit video for you. Don't send it to Fiverr. Like find somebody on Upwork or some other virtual assistant staffing platform that's an expert in video. The main thing I'm looking for is is, can they execute the type of editing styles that I need? So have some prepared examples that you're going to send the editor, give them instructions on like, hey, here's a video, like edit this, like this one. And then if they do it, then cool. But I would say look somewhere between like 10 and 20 bucks an hour for a good video editor that's going to not have to be handhold. You're going to be able to send the content to them in like a Google Drive folder or something like that. And then they're going to edit it for you. And then, if you find typically like in my business, I have only a video editor that like video editors only edit videos. Then I have copywriters that only write copy. I have social media managers that only post social media and manage the content. So if you have somebody on your team, say it's like a executive assistant or something like that, have them quality check the content, make sure all the captions, grammar is correct, all that, and then have them post it for you on a daily basis or whatever your frequency was that you decided. If you don't have somebody on your team that does that, it's going to be a challenge because you're going to be running your business. Then you're going to get home, get in bed at 10 o'clock at night and be like, oh, I forgot to post today. Then you're going to whip out your phone, post, and then that's going to be like, oh, I forgot to post yesterday. And then it's going to turn into, oh, I forgot to post last week. So yeah, I would say find somebody. If you have a video editor that speaks English well and they're able to manage the content, then cool. Have them post the content until you find somebody else that can actually do that. But yeah, I would definitely delegate. Like you record the content, utilize ChatGPT to help you craft some SEO tools that'll help you craft topics and, literally again, just answer questions. And that's all the topics that you have. Get on camera, record it, send it to your video editor and let them do everything else after that. So that's where I would start. So a budget like Michael, like this is a really probably a direct thing, but budget wise, you could probably expect to have a video editor on your team that's less than $500 a month for you to edit, say 3 videos a week that's going to go out on your social media. So
I love what you're saying because it basically what we're talking about is treating VAs or just outsourced talent that can be you can get for not too high of a cost as fractional subject matter experts. Right. So let's say that you have,
that's a great way to put it. Wow.
If you have 30 available hours in your budget that you can pay for, you're going to get far more performance by having somebody that is an experienced BDR that you can have working on your sales pipeline for 10 hours a week, somebody who's a very experienced subject matter expert on social media and content production, working 10 hours a week on social, and somebody that is doing 10 hours a week on your transaction coordination side. And with their powers combined, you're getting incredible output, as opposed to like hiring a kid named Marvin and expecting him to be a sales, social media, and transaction coordination expert. You do that, you're gonna have to train him on 3 levels. You're gonna have to manage him on 3 levels. You lose him, and you lose 3 positions at once. Like it's hard, and it's again a default setting that a lot of people are taking is just hire a VA and get them to do all of the things instead of a fractional approach.
Yeah, no, I love the way you put that. And to be clear too, like sometimes we have to bootstrap stuff like that. So like I just recently had a team member where we actually don't have hardly any turnover ever internally. So we had a team member that personal situation came up. They had to leave the team and I desperately needed somebody to hop in there. So I had my graphic designer start editing videos, but she was amazing at it. She had toyed around with it a little bit. It just wasn't her role in the organization now. And I discovered that she was actually good at it. So I kept her on that task, but she still does graphic design. But here's the thing is that like, we still have her held accountable to the same trainings, processes, systems, everything that we have set in place for the rest of our video editors. We have now 5 full-time video editors on our team, but every person that's on my team is an expert in one specific area that they are dedicated to. And I do think that's important. So if you need to hire an assistant that, and generally Michael too, like assistants kind of take care of a lot of things that are not in just one specific category. If you need to hire an assistant that's just posting for you, then fine, do that. But I would say like, just make sure that there's a level of commitment to it, level of accountability. So if they're responsible for posting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, make sure that that accountability piece is there and that they're held accountable to posting those days. But for you to put on yourself to learn how to go edit video, to learn what it takes, to keep up with the trends, to post it yourself every single day, just doesn't work. It doesn't work. You'll do it for a month and then you'll stop. And I see that time and time again. So be careful with
And
that.
with all marketing, consistency is key, right? Like you can't run launch control for 30 days and then go, well, I didn't get a deal out of it, I'm going to quit, and then try it again in 6 months, and then try it again 6 months later. What you need to build up pipeline, and you need to, from that pipeline that you've built up, be able to close a deal and then turn back and have another deal that's about 60% the way there, another deal that's 85% the way there, so that you're consistently closing over time. And when you shut off that pipeline, then you lose all of the momentum that you've built up. And the same is true with your organic traffic. Like once you start that process rolling, it's really important that you keep it rolling. You know, there is evergreen content, of course, but in terms of the way that, you know, this Google and any search related site works, is they're always going to give favor to people that are consistently educating and consistently populating content. And so you need to have some level of consistency to continue to reap the rewards of that.
Absolutely. And that's why I even say, like, start at a level that you know you can sustain for 90 days and then build on top of that, instead of starting super aggressive and then you work backwards, because then it just blows everything that you did before out of the water.
Yeah. So, you know, I know that within this space, again, I want to reiterate that this isn't about instant lead generation, right? You're going to get leads coming in from it, but it's really about building up your brand, building up that awareness of your brand, so that, you know, you're getting word of mouth, you're getting recommendations, you're getting people coming through, and you will get leads. But it's also about just like a consistent brand and business growth mechanism. So within this space of maybe some underutilized options that people can take advantage of in REI, what are some things that you see as people maybe being able to take advantage of? You know, like I don't know what a good example would be, like what Instagram reels were 3 years ago or something.
For directly generating leads, I would say YouTube is probably, because it's a search engine. So like I have a client that specifically specializes in probate deals in Atlanta, and he works so hard. He's big on SEO, runs a little bit of PPC, but he's got SEO down. Like he's been doing it for years for his specific sites. And all the content that we put out is specifically towards people that are in the probate process. So if you inherited a house, here's what you got to go through. So he started interviewing like attorneys that were local and talking to them about certain situations and stuff like that. Just constantly pounding the drum on that one specific niche. And that has done extremely well because of the search functions of YouTube, tying it back to his website SEO efforts. So I think if you are putting content out, if you're specifically trying to drive leads, like YouTube is going to be a big piece of that because of the search functions. Now you have to treat it like that, like make sure you're building your content around the search functions. But I would say like take YouTube very, very seriously, because it could be a very blue ocean for a lot of people, depending on the niche that you're in. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it is a weird analogy, but it's true. Like my dad is great about fixing. He can fix anything. He can build anything. But even he will sometimes, if he's not quite sure how to do something, he'll watch a couple YouTube videos, get an idea of how to do it, and then he'll go tackle the problem. And people like that guided experience. They like that face recognition where you're not there's more trust in it than, you know, because a lot of like blog content and that sort of thing is it's people don't trust it as much anymore, because it can be paid for, it can be sponsored basically, and so the trust factor goes down. But if somebody took the time to record a video on YouTube and said, like, look, my name is Michael, I work on probate deals, here's how it works for the people that I work with, here are the outcomes that you can expect, and I'm putting myself out there and having that you know, face forward conversation, it's a very, very quick way to build trust, because it's not a plant. I'm not going to do that as a plant, right? Whereas, you know, some of the articles that you can read, ChatGPT wrote it, and you don't know how much validity is there,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where it just goes back to like for example, if your dad was working on cars and he was working on changing the tail light himself, like one of the smartest things a mechanic shop could do is create content on how to change the tail light of your vehicle, and that can build instant trust and credibility for that person. I personally like watched video. Like one of my latest obsessions is funny enough, I've been using it more than she has, but I got my wife a Ninja Creamy. It's an ice cream maker that Ninja made, and it's amazing. And I've been digging super deep into like new recipes, the best ways to make it, how to get the best consistency out of the ice cream and that sort of thing. And any video that I watch that's like, I wouldn't necessarily subscribe to that person, but they've delivered value to me. So I'll like the video and comment if it's something that I got value out of. Say, thanks for shooting this. This actually really, really helped. And that happens a lot. Like I watch anything that I do to impress my wife when I'm fixing something. I never tell her that I watched at least 2 or 3 YouTube videos about how to fix it. So, but it's the truth. It's how people learn nowadays, and how again, I'll go back to framing it up as when I'd said utilizing your content as a resource. That's literally what it is. So think of it that way.
Yeah, and if your content is driving traffic to whatever the landing page is, that becomes a lead magnet. If you capture the data in the right way, like for instance, if you get opt-in for people for text engagement, now those are leads that are, you don't have any handcuffs on those leads, right? They've agreed to receive marketing communications from you. So you can put them onto drip sequences. You can use text as a way of creating that consistency of touch points after they've consumed that content, and put them closer to your sphere. So even if they are in that consideration phase, you're still gaining traction with them before they're willing to commit to a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
All right. So for everybody listening, we're going to put the links to Culler Media and the links to the podcast, the REI Marketing Weekly with Josh, in the episode description below. So make sure that you visit both of those. Josh, anything else you wanna drop to the audience before I let you go?
I think the only thing I always do this, I always offer this when I'm kind of exiting on a podcast, and this is not like go follow me here, but if truly anybody's listening that needs help with anything we talked about today, find me on Facebook or Instagram. Just look up Josh Culler. I'm verified on the platform. So send me a direct message. Say Michael sent me from the podcast that you were interviewed on with him, and I have this question. And I'm more than happy to go back and forth with you about helping you guys through this. There's so many things. Michael and I just talked about like 1% of what it takes to do content marketing and social media. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like unknowns and not sure about how to do it this way and that sort of thing. So send me a message and I'd be happy to answer any questions for your audience that they have about content marketing, social media stuff. But yeah, other than that, my podcast, the REI Marketing Weekly, we're going to have Michael on there. I'm interviewing him, I think, in a couple weeks. And so his episode will go out at some point after this one. So be on the lookout for that. But I definitely appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that and being on the show, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And next week we'll talk when we record, we'll talk a little bit about how we can use text engagement to optimize or complement what you do with all of the organic marketing. But for anyone listening, if you talk to Josh and his team, you consume that content that he has, and you're curious about how to implement that through Launch Control as well. Again, in the episode description, you'll see a link. Just let our team know that you listen to this episode, and they'll link you up directly with my team, and we'll talk strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me on, man.
Sure thing.